I knew I was going to be a lawyer, but I also knew that wasn't going to be the last stop. Like I knew that, but I kind of like you brush it off and you're like, okay, but I got to do this thing. Like I got finals. Like I'm not trying to deal with voice, right?
So, welcome to the You Are a Lawyer podcast. Audie V. Vargas. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm really excited. I'm gonna try not to tell too many spoilers, but like the lawyer to author pipeline is so strong. And I love that you're an author. I love that you're all about alignment and how to get your life together because I've been slowly trying to follow those steps. I hate that like we're not taught even from elementary school how to walk in alignment, but
Yeah.
that's what we're going to discuss today.
Right.
Yes.
No, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
having
So, would you share a little bit about your journey from corporate attorney to being an author to all the stuff? Tell us about it.
I'll give you the shortest version I can. So we have time to get into all the other stuff. But I am first generation Latina. So my parents are from the Dominican Republic. I was born here. That's important because so much of my drive, my hunger, my ambition comes from my culture and my upbringing and seeing my parents sacrifice so much, their work ethic, all really contributed to the way that I pursue so many things that I'm really passionate about. And also with a culture that's so rich and so beautiful, there are also parts of it that are can be difficult when you internalize certain beliefs that don't serve you. Like, and we can talk about these later, but things like deference to authority, things like sacrifice is the norm. It's what we always have to do. And I always think of those beliefs as something that can be helpful to a point, right? So I've actually have really enjoyed that journey of deciding which beliefs am I going to hold on to, which am I going to let go of just a little bit, which ones have served me and don't serve me anymore. And I became a lawyer. I did primary litigation. And then I had my first child. I have three children. I had my first child and I had an identity crisis because I had placed my worth so squarely on my work and what I did and my title and what that meant. Meaning, some Dominican girl made it to like this level of a big law firm where we're like less than 1%, right? Where you walk around and you don't see people looking like you. And you have to navigate for me, the law firm environment was an entirely new culture. Like it was its own culture that you had to learn. I'm like, shoot, I've been learning American culture and now I got to learn like law firm corporate culture. And then I had to learn in-house culture later. But I had that identity crisis when I had my first child because I had never really asked myself, who am I without my work? Who am I without my hustle? Who am I without my grind? Who am I without constantly achieving and getting validation from those achievements? Because it feels good to do that. And when you grow up with not a ton of money and not a lot of, I would say, like inherited opportunity, where you've had to fight for every opportunity you have, and it's all merit. Like I was not given any favors, right? You learn that that's part of who you are. And so when I had my first son and I was fortunate enough to have maternity leave from my firm, because not everybody gets paid leave. I did. I was fortunate, right? I was with an infant and I was thinking to myself, this is really hard. And I was very emotional. And people would say to me, you must be so happy. Oh my gosh, you're a mom. Oh, what a beautiful little boy. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is awful. Like, I just feed him, I change him. Like, I'm thinking to myself, this is not, I had the baby blues, right? I was not okay. And I also was going through this huge identity crisis because all of my source for my worth and my validation, which is wrapped up in my work, went away when I was on leave. I was with an infant. That's what I did all day. And I would just ask myself, oh my gosh, am I just a mother? Like that can't be. And I say that with so much respect and love for mothers who want to stay with their kids full time and really want that. And I think that's actually the hardest job there is. But that's just not who I am. And I have gifts that I want to share in other ways. And so that was my first major, I would say, pivot when I really started to dig deeper into who am I without my title? Who am I really? What do I really want? What have I done that really was about checking boxes and doing what I was supposed to do versus what I really want to do and what I'm called to do. Those are very different things. And not that I hadn't thought about the calling before, I had, even in law school, like I knew I was going to be a lawyer, but I also knew that wasn't going to be the last stop. Like I knew that. But I kind of like you brush it off and you're like, okay, but I got to do this thing. Like I got finals. Like I'm not trying to deal with voice, right? And I had to make it. I was trying to make some money. Like let's be real. Like let's be honest about that. And had this identity crisis, moved through, went back to work about a year later, decided to go in house because I didn't think I wanted to be a trial lawyer anymore. I was like, this is not what I want. It's what I had wanted when I got there. But then just decided, this isn't me anymore. It's what I wanted when I started law school. It's not what I want anymore. I really want to be in a more collaborative environment. I want to create programs. I want to do different things. And so went in house just with that curiosity, like what else can I do? Right? It wasn't that I knew at that time I wanted to be an author or that I wanted to necessarily coach. Because I actually ended up getting my coaching certification maybe a year later after I left the law firm because I had been coached, understood the power of coaching, and then became one. But I was coaching alongside my full-time job. I was in litigation. Then I led a lot of corporate compliance initiatives, like standing up our compliance program and enhancing the program, and then pivoted completely into human resources and led employee relations and then led our leadership development programs across the globe. And then at that point decided, hey, I really want to make a bigger impact beyond this company that I had been at for a long time, and decided to go off on my own and do my coaching speaking business full time. I had written the book by that time, and my book was set to come out maybe six or 8 months later. I'd written the book while I was working. This isn't like I left my job and then I did everything. I've been doing things over the years, a little bit here, a little bit there. I started my podcast, I think in 2021. So again, it wasn't like I stopped something and then started something brand new. I was testing and experimenting with things along the way. And my book, Your Time to Rise, really starts with that story of my identity crisis as a new mom. And then what it led me to, and then also how there are times in your life when you hit crossroads and inflection points where you ask yourself a set of questions. And so the book provides a framework for you to work through those inflection points.
Yes. All right. So whole bunch there, a whole bunch. First of all, you have a 1-year visualization guided tour on your website. I was doing that this morning.
Oh, I love it. Oh,
I was doing that this morning. So I'll probably cut this part out, but it's May 14th. Yeah, May 14th. I just left my corporate job yesterday where I was running operations for Abercrombie and Fitch. And, it had been time. I've wrestled with giving myself permission to do what I want. I started this at the law firm. I've been doing the podcast. It was 5 years, April 2025. I just hit 10 years out of law school. Everything is absolutely fine. And I was just like, but can you do that? That was the hardest part for me. I'm talking therapy, coaching,
yes,
EFT tapping, laying in the floor, and just like, Kyla, you can make your own choice. I was like, you went to law school to advocate. You had a child because you wanted to teach and raise the next generation. You got married because you wanted to build. What did you do just because you wanted to do it? I could not tell you.
Yes.
It was so hard. And so I'm so like free and liberated because once I made the decision, it was then like easy to tell people. But I wrestled with the decision for months and months and months on end. And I couldn't figure out if it was just because, like, am I not supposed to leave? And I had to, like, make a list. I was like, you have money, you have this, you have this, you have this, you have this. What is the problem? And it really whittled it all down to, like, what do you want, right? And your website's all about alignment. And it was like, I want to be a person who works for herself. Well, then, Kyla, work for yourself. I want to be a person who has her own time. And so then I would make a list. You have your own time to do this and do that, and you leave the office for hours. That's not it, right? So then I'd have to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. So, okay.
But I love that because this is how it really is. It is not typically, I wake up one day and I'm moving on and I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It is not typically like that. there are like fits and starts. There are, I don't know, there's a tug of war. There's an internal kind of battle you're dealing with. There's mental chatter. Then it's you come back to yourself and you're like, no, I'm gonna do it. And then your mental chatter goes and you're like, no, I can't do it. And you battle yourself in a lot of ways. I can say that the biggest, most impactful question you can ask yourself always is, what is my next right step? I think, what do I really want is important for like future. Like, what do I want my life to look like, right? What do I, and you can ask the question, what I really want right now. But so often our brains and we get overwhelmed with too much of what that would mean. Like, we think about all the things that could mean. So I always say, what's just the next right thing for you? Like, what's the next conversation you have to have? Like, what's the next right question to ask yourself? And what I realized too, for myself and for the clients I work with, is we get stuck in our heads and we have to often do something to get more clarity. So you have had the podcast. You've been doing things. It's not like you just in your head being like, I don't know, should I do something else? Like you've been experimenting. So you know what it feels like in your body to do something different. And that is so important because we as lawyers, we like to stay up here in our heads. We logically understand things like rest is productive. We logically get it. We logically understand boundaries are important to take care of myself, but we don't do it because it's harder to do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thinking and doing are completely different, which is so ironic. You have to have the thought to even get the action, but
Right.
they're so different. And I feel like, especially for lawyers, we are literally raised to not to separate them, right?
Correct.
It's not about, do I want to edit this brief or this motion right now? Someone told me to do it and someone's supposed to do it. And so to even sit down and say, like, am I thirsty right now? Am I hungry? How do I feel? Or I don't like this emotion, but I need to feel it and then it's going to change because it's an emotion. I
Yes.
was not taught to do that.
Many of us were not, unless you grew up with like parents who were therapists, honestly. And even then, I'm not sure. You also were taught in law school that emotions have no place here. Like, they stick to, what does the case law say? How can you apply the case law to your current set of facts? It was extremely objective, extremely devoid of any feeling or emotion. And you were taught how to compartmentalize very well. So when you go to work and you're actually working in a law firm or in any kind of legal setting or corporate setting as a lawyer, you are trained to do that. And so you do that with your own life. You literally apply that to your own life and you say, nope, there's no room for myself at work. And you don't realize that, no, life is also work. Life and work are not separate. I mean, I often talk about like work-life harmony only because, and I don't use the word balance because I think it's a myth that it creates an unrealistic standard for us. And we know perfection doesn't exist, but we still try to achieve it. So I think language is powerful. But I use that phrase with the understanding that work is part of life, right? They're really not separate. And what we've been trained to do is put work at the forefront and not who we are and what we want and who we're called to become. Like, we don't get training on that. And so when you are an adult, this is the work, right? It's your responsibility to figure out, who do I want to become? And am I happy? And if I'm not happy, what am I willing to do to get closer to the happiness I think that I want?
Yeah. And you know what I think is especially important is that we get to use the same grit and determination that got us through law school, but now we're using it on ourselves. And so it feels a little bit different, but also we know we'll get there. We've done hard things. It's
Yes.
just like, to your point, we don't necessarily know what's coming. We're just saying this is the right step right now.
Yes. And it's okay to not know what comes after that. And that's hard. Uncertainty is like terrorizing. Here's the thing, you will never know for sure how anything is going to turn out. It's actually not in your control how everything turns out. You have a certain amount of control, you have a certain amount of agency. And other than that, you don't have it. And so to think that we can't make moves because we don't know how it's going to turn out, is life is like that. Life can be unexpected. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have stressors. And if you have no challenge and no stress in your life, I would say something's amiss. If you're not stretching a little or a little uncomfortable, and you haven't been like that for like 5+ years, I would say maybe it's time to hit the button on acceleration of growth. because you're not tapping into something. It's okay to be steady, right? But then oftentimes people have a rhythm. They're steady, stable, then they want a challenge or they want to grow in a new way. They're steady and stable, so it's a rhythm. It's like a little dance. So I think people can think about what's going on with my life that is really energizing to me. What lights me up? What makes me feel so alive and grateful to be here? And then what are the things that I'm like, nah, man, I don't want to do that anymore? Or like, I'm not willing to tolerate that anymore. But you have to be able to say to those things, I'm done with you, to really make the changes you need to make. Like it, people always talk about changes, and I say, look, the point that people make a change is when they say, I'm done. I'm done with that. I need to do something else. And they feel it so much in their body that there's no other option. There's no other alternative at that point.
And especially for us, it's like you'll get that little inkling, the little nag that's like,
Yeah.
hey, there's more. Hey, what about hey? And then it becomes so loud, or it resonates with you so much that you're like, I want more of that and less of this, and more and less and more and less. And then eventually it's like, okay, now I want all of it.
Yeah.
And ironically, becoming a parent is what taught me that, because I should have known I could only control myself. I didn't realize it until I had a small child. And I was like, I can still tell you not to do that and you can still do it because you have complete autonomy. Like, you don't even understand consequences yet. And I was just like, oh, wow. And so to look at this baby and be like, how does she have more autonomy and freedom than I do? It kind of was like, Kylie, you can create this whole thing that you want, right? And so you mentioned earlier that you had worked with coaches and then you saw the value of coaching, you became a coach. Mm-hmm. I started this podcast while still at Big Law, spoke to probably 15 coaches before I was like, is coaching important? And then I've had about 2 every year, because like you get a business scale coach and then you get a like there's different coaches. It's not, right. I thought it was like having a therapist. And once I realized it wasn't, I was like, oh, I became obsessed. So what is it like for you working with clients?
Oh, I love this question. So my goal is always transformation from the inside out. And my goal is always, whether it's I'm working with leaders, but you know what leadership coaching is? It's leading oneself and at work. It is being the leader of their own life and at work, because you cannot lead other people at work if you don't know yourself. And if you can't lead in your own life, right? So for me, there's like that group. And then there's a group of very high achieving, like lawyers and leaders who come to me. They're executive level, but they really want the life type coaching. And they usually have some kind of career pivot they're going through or thinking through, in addition to everything else in their life. They really want to align things better. Meaning, when I talk about alignment, we're aligning what's inside. So what you really believe, like what you truly believe and what you truly want for yourself, with what you say, do, and pursue on the outside. Because what happens is we're misaligned because we say we want all these things, but then we don't do anything about them. And so we feel bad, and then we feel guilty, and then say yes when we mean to say no because we feel bad, instead of tapping into what is the most important thing for me, what matters most to me, and really going with that and following that, knowing that you can't go wrong when you stick with that, because if you can disappoint so many people, which you're going to regret in the end if you disappoint yourself more than that. So coaching for me is all about transformation and allowing people to see the power they have to change and improve their lives and however they want, and understanding and accepting where they are and moving from there, right? Like there's nothing worse than you just fighting with where you are. Like the first step is always like, I am in this season. So if you're a new mom, that's a tough season. That's hard. A mom of a toddler, I have 3 kids. One of them is a toddler. She's 4. And she's our youngest. And you need to emotionally regulate yourself to help them emotionally regulate. It's hard. It's not easy. And to understand that there are needs that your toddler has that your 10-year-old and my 8-year-old don't have. I have to change up my approach and my tone when I talk to each of them, because each of them has a different level of, I would say, tolerance and a threshold of sensitivity. But you're constantly having to shift your energy, and that's to the season you're in, because when they're teenagers, totally different ball game in the way that you talk to them and how you engage. And the same thing with work. If you've been a lawyer for 10 to 15 years, totally different place than if you were just starting out. Right. And so recognizing where you are and the experience you have and saying, okay, but what do I want moving forward? Not necessarily 20 years from now, you can do that, but what do I really want for myself next? And how can I get closer to feeling contentment, like what I have is actually enough for me? Because so many of us move the goalpost of what is enough and what is okay, we just move it. And so it's never enough. And a lot of us grew up with a scarcity mindset. So it's not shocking that when you are 10, 15, 20 years into your career, you still are like, it's not enough for me. I haven't done enough. I'm not working enough. If I'm not working this way, people are going to think I'm unreliable, uncommitted, irresponsible.
I know. And the crazy thing is, I love social media because the things that resonate with me are so funny, and it'll be so random and nothing like what I would have thought. But I saw this post where someone said, maybe you don't celebrate yourself because you're constantly moving the goalpost, that you haven't realized everything you've done.
Absolutely.
And I was like, no, there's no way. Because I'm actually recording a YouTube video about it. I accidentally regulated my nervous system. In December, we have like 3 weeks where we get to work from home. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start waking up early and I'll just like meditate. I was like, my kiddo gets up at 7, my husband gets up, and I was like, I'll just get up earlier so that I can still go to sleep at 9. So I just started getting up at 6, and then it was 5:45, and then it was 5:30. And so I was like, I'll meditate, I'll journal, I'll have my coffee. And then when they're up, I just won't have to like roll my eyes at them, right? Because now I've had my own time. And then I was like, but now when they irritate me, I'm not scratching my eczema anymore. But now I'm actually deep breathing all day. But now, and I was like, next thing I knew, I was another person. And I was like, you really? And I was like, that's so funny that like it kind of snuck up on me. Because I was like, you have regulated your nervous system to where now I couldn't live out of alignment. My body was screaming at me when I would say the yes, when I meant no. Which, when you said that, I was kind of laughing, like, are lawyers people pleasers? Because I would have thought that I was not.
Yes.
But I think we are. And even to the point of, like, why don't we do what we want? We don't ask ourselves what we want. Yep. And so then we're so afraid to ask that then once you ask and you know the answer, you have to follow it. You can't not. Like, and that's the scary part.
It's the scary part because it's so unknown. And it's, well, what am I going to do? And how am I going to do that? And what does this mean? We spiral, as we often do, right? We spiral. We don't take a chance to just re-anchor and recenter. Because, you know, part of why I wrote Your Time to Rise was because I felt like with so many clients I was working with and what I was seeing was they needed to come back to themselves first. Before you go ask your mentor and the 5,000 people around you what you should do and what you got to know yourself first. You have to know yourself. And I think sometimes we get lost and we lose ourselves a bit, even in motherhood, but also as you're starting your career and you're trying to just be excellent at your craft and you doing what you're told, like you're doing what you're told, you're just executing all the time. You forget like, wait, where am I in this? And how come I'm not feeling like myself? Or yeah, I wanted to be a big law lawyer when I was coming out of law school. When I started, I wanted to make partner, but now 4 years later, 5 years later, 6 years later, I don't actually want to be partner anymore. And it doesn't mean, and this is something that's so important, it doesn't mean you can't do it or you couldn't hack it. Like I'm going to say this and I may get flack for it, but it is what it is because it's something that I believe because I've seen it. Just because you're a partner at a law firm doesn't mean you are better than the people that left. Let's not get that twisted. You stuck around. You did the work, but you also stuck around. So there was less competition for you. So, I mean, I just think that's important to recognize. It doesn't mean that you haven't worked hard, you haven't earned it. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that just because you left, if you've left a law firm, don't take it as I left because I couldn't do it. And don't then look at other people who are making partner when you left and then envy that because you left for a reason. You left because it wasn't who you wanted to be. The same reason why when I started at my first law firm, our summer associate class was, I think, about 100 summers. And when we entered our first year after we took the bar, I think there were maybe like 50 people in litigation for my year. And by the end of that year, a bunch of people left because they said, and this is in the middle of the recession that back then, they said, this environment is just not for me. Like, it's just not for me. And they went on and they did amazing things, but because the environment wasn't one they wanted to be in. And then there are people who stay in an environment they don't like, and they have that tug of war every single day. And they just do it because that's all that they think they can do, when they probably have gifts that go way beyond what they're doing. So I think there's something to how we're trained as lawyers, and some of the conditioning from society and culture we have before we enter the law. And then when we enter the law, there's another layer of conditioning and programming that we get that we need to kind of break free from to really tap into who we really are, what we really want, and why that's important to us. But it takes looking inward first.
Yeah, it does. So I want to talk about real quick, you left being a corporate attorney to then go in-house. And I think that's really important because a lot of times people are, especially lawyers, we're afraid that if we ask ourselves what we want, we're going to just run away from law. And
you might, but you might, you might not.
But also that doesn't mean you shouldn't ask, right? That doesn't mean you shouldn't ask. But you decided, okay, I don't want to do this type of law anymore. I want to go in-house, right? Let's talk about some of the power in that, because you were like, let me just see what else is out there. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition?
Yes. So let me be more specific about what I was doing at the firm. I was doing commercial and securities litigation. I did not enjoy securities litigation. Shocker. Many people do not enjoy it unless you're like a partner and you really love it, and like it's what you're good at, and you do enjoy it. There are people who do enjoy it. I also want to say that I have plenty of friends who are partners at firms, and they like their job and they like the people that they work with, but they're at firms where they're able to master their time. Like, they're really able to master their energy. And yes, they have late nights, and yes, sometimes it's challenging, but when they look at it over the years, they are satisfied. I do think that's more possible at non-major big law firms. But when I was at the firm I was at, I was doing securities and commercial litigation, and I didn't love securities litigation. And I was up for partner the year after I left, meaning I had one of those reviews of like your year and what you want to do. And they said to me, so you would be up for partner next year. So let us know what you would like to do. Like, we will support you if you want to go for it. Like, and other partners at the firm reached out to me and said, really think about this. Like, this could be a good opportunity for you. Again, there's no guarantees, you may not get it. But I immediately, when they said that to me, I felt like my stomach drop. And I was like, I have no interest in doing that.
We got to say this for all the law students listening. When you get into a big law firm, you have to work enough hours to even be considered. It's not you're there 7 years and then you're up for partner. No. It is not. You have to work so many hours to even be in the window. Okay. So you've already been working. Okay. So
there at that firm, you make it at 9 or 10 years equity partner, no income partner. You're all in or you're out basically at that time. Other firms, you're right, are like that, you make it at 6 or 7 years, maybe your income partner, then you work to equity partner. But so a few firms are different. However, to your point of, you've worked not just hours, you've established relationships, you've established a reputation. Also, which people forget, you can be the best executor of work. Like, you're great at execution. You draft the best briefs. You're so reliable. You're always available. But if you can't do business development, that's going to be rough for you. You may not make it, right? So it's not just I do my work, because I knew plenty of people who didn't make partner who I thought were brilliant when I worked with them. And then I was so confused when they didn't make partner. Again, there are things that sometimes you do everything and you won't make it. So I just want to put that out there for them.
You're saying all this to say everyone is not offered the opportunity to become a partner. And yes. So you saying they asked you if you were interested and your stomach fell out, that's not, I think I'll just have matcha instead of coffee. It's not a flippant decision.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Oh my gosh. Because when I started at a different law firm, when I started, because I clerked also, I did a few things. When I started as a first year associate, I wanted to be a partner. Like let's be very clear. I wanted to be a partner. I wanted to be like GC because I thought that's what you do is you become general counsel. Like all the things you're supposed to do. I'm like, yeah, I want to do that because I could do that. And then you live some life and you experience things and you say, and you get to know yourself a little bit better in this new professional realm. And you're like, yeah, actually, it's not what I want. So when I had that conversation, and by the way, the conversation with one of them was a dear mentor to me who I still am good friends with, who I was like, I told him after, I'm like, I don't think I can do this. Like, and as soon as I knew that, I started looking. And I didn't start looking, I didn't start applying to jobs. I started talking to my people, like the people that I knew who were lawyers at other at companies. And I'm like, hey, I'm thinking like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't think I want to be a partner. Like, I know what it's going to be like to hustle for a year and then hustle for a year to do securities litigation if they make me partner, to do something I don't want to do. And that is where the work was. It was made very clear to me. That is where the work is. That's where we would need you. And I'm like, I don't want to be an expert in that. That does nothing for my life, like nothing. It doesn't enrich me or my life at all. And so I reached out to my network, who knew my work, knew me as a lawyer, worked with me, and I was like, hey, I'm looking. And then people started calling me back. So maybe I have this thing. You should apply for it. It's not very clear to me. It is not a lateral move. It's like kind of like maybe like a little bit lower level than what you'd expect. And it's not as much pay, but it is a window opportunity for you. And once you get in there and you crush it, I'm telling you, opportunities will like abound for you. And so one of those opportunities came up and I applied. I went through the whole application process, interview process, and that was the fast-paced biotech I was at for 8 years. But let's be really clear of what I was going into. I went from securities litigation. So people know this is how things happen, okay? Securities litigation into an in-house position that was half litigation, half corporate compliance, running all investigations. I had done investigations before that was not new, but it was also corporate compliance, so a little bit different than white collar stuff, right? So, and then from there, my role in compliance expanded. I let go of litigation to be full-time corporate compliance, standing up our anti-corruption, anti-bribery program, being a business partner to the business. Like my role expanded significantly. Doing things, by the way, I had never done at a firm. Like, let's be honest. But there are things that are not rocket science. Like, we lawyers have to be a little humble. The things that we do are not rocket science. They're not. And so the things you're doing in house are also typically not rocket science unless you're literally the scientist and you're the rocket scientist, right? So, and I was at a very research focused biotech. So I thought the scientists were like geniuses, right? I'm like, we're just here to support you and help you like achieve the dream. But I share this because it's so important for people to understand that the leap was not big law lawyer to author. The leap was big law lawyer, clerk. I taught business law at a business school at Boston College. And then in house, my role shifted so many times. And my second big pivot, like really after I left the firm to go in house, really was when I decided I didn't want to be in the legal and compliance group anymore. I really wanted to focus on leadership development because I was coaching so much and I had my podcast. And I was like, this is what I really am meant to do. I want to do it here first. And so, but there wasn't a position in leadership development. There was a position in employee relations. And employee relations is investigations. I know how to do that. Just a little different, but I know how to do it. It's a skill set I have. I'm good at that. Did that for about 2 years and then moved into leadership development when something was available for me. And then actually could co-create that with the leader of that group. And it was fantastic. I say all this because it's so important for people to understand it's mission critical to decide what is my next right step. Because I wouldn't have been able to predict it going in how I was going to do leadership development. I couldn't have predicted that, nor could I have predicted a position would be available for me to take. Because in-house, there has to be headcount. There has to be a position available for you, right? So I do think it's important for us all to recognize that paths are nonlinear and that if you really follow the next right thing for you, it does eventually lead to what's best for you in the end. If you follow what you truly want and what you're called to do.
Yeah, I appreciate all that detail that you gave us because I feel like lawyers are extremely creative.
Yes. Yes. Can I just tell you that I know so many lawyers who have these amazing ideas and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would buy that in a second. Like, you need to work on this. They're like, I don't have time. I'm like,
And
Yes.
so we're very creative. And so even when you were a clerk and you might have been, okay, how do I put this case law together and make this all fit? You created your career. That's what you
Yes.
just explained to us. You
Yes.
created your career. And I love that.
Let me be honest again. It didn't come without sometimes feeling like I'm not ready, feeling super uncertain, feeling like, do I know what I'm doing? Like sometimes I had those moments, but I always remembered like I am so capable. I have so much training that is so transferable. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I use so many of my lawyer skills. Like coaching, a lot of it is problem solving. It's collaborative problem solving. I mean, if we think about it in one sentence, is helping you go from where you are to where you want to go. Like, how do we bridge the gap? That's literally it. The issue is that people are like, I'm not sure where I am and I'm not sure where I want to go. That's where you get into the real nitty gritty of
Yeah,
coaching.
no, it's true. It's true. It's true. And I think, the place I just left, I was there for 2 years and I was like, they'll be fine. And, I had the whole conversation. I was leaving.
Yes.
And the first day was okay. And then the second day, they were like, the business development portion kicked in and they were like, Kylie, you don't even understand all the impact. And I was like, well, but I'm the magic, right? And I was like, and they're like, well, can you write us a list of the stuff you do? And I was like, yeah, and here's 6 pages of things. And they're like, but this isn't it. And I'm like, but I'm the magic. But that's
Yeah.
also the magic that I want to put in my own stuff. I was like, but you got to realize, like, I do this here because being an employee is comfortable. But I want to put this same energy into my own things. I've been doing them with a ton of assistance and a lot of help, but like, I know I can put this in my own stuff. And I was like, there's really no right explanation, right? Because as a lawyer, I was prepared. I knew if I said too many things, they'd be like, well, you want to move over here? That's not it either, right? Yeah. And so I was like, I had to stand on it, but I'm so excited to put the magic into my own stuff. Like it feels so good. It feels so good.
I love that for you. And I love that you are saying, but I'm the magic. Because I'm telling you, most people aren't saying that to themselves. They're like, I'm not enough. I can't do that. It's not an option for me. I don't know how to make that work. I'm good because of my team. And it's like, no, but you're also very good alone. But like you yourself are the magic. I would love if more women lawyers, especially women of color lawyers, could say that about them.
They will get there because they'll listen to this. And also, I do book reviews on YouTube, so I'm definitely going to pick up your book and I'll do a review.
Yes.
And so, I think about all the women lawyers, even the ones that don't even talk about being lawyers, like Mel Robbins and Rachel Rogers. And I'm like, all of these women are lawyers. So, like, it's slowly gaining more traction. And we're going to help every single woman lawyer. And listen, if you're listening and you're a law student or a young lawyer, you don't have to run away from everything you've done, right? Artervate has already told us your skills are transferable.
Yes,
it's just you have to be honest. And so you got to talk to yourself so that you don't have the midlife crisis. You already know that you're doing what you want. You're already living with the work-life harmony and your life is in alignment. Because it's going to happen, whether it's now or whether you're 88 and you're like, did I do what I wanted? It's going to happen. So just do it now proactively.
Yes. And I think when you're starting out, it's okay to say, I want to get through law school. That's my focus. And then I want to be a lawyer and learn the craft. Like, I think it's important to say, I want to be excellent at my job. And that's my focus for the next 2-3 years, like to just be excellent for a third year out of law school, right? Because you would get better with more time. It's okay to recognize that's the season. I want people to just pay attention to the little whispers they hear, the little voice they hear that's like, oh, is this it? Or like, this feels really good. What feels really good and energizing and what feels like it's draining and not good? Because it will feel draining to work a ton of hours and be tired. That'll feel draining. But if you feel like the work is worth it and you really love the work, then it can balance out. So just paying attention to what feels good, what doesn't feel good. How are you talking to yourself each day? Noticing patterns, right, is important because I'm telling you, I coach women in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s. And I'm telling you that this midlife awakening does happen. And what happens is it's a reckoning. It's a reckoning of like, oh, shoot, I was so busy checking all the damn boxes that I forgot who the hell I was and what I wanted from my life. So now, I am going to do it my way. That's what people talk about in their 40s and 50s and even their 60s. They care so much less of what people think because they're so anchored in them. They get back to themselves. And what we're saying to your listeners right now is pay attention to who you are throughout. So you don't get to midlife and say, what have I done? What am I doing this for? It's okay to reach that place and there's support for that, but you can do little things over time so you don't hit this place and feel like this is now overwhelming.
Yeah. And so, Artavi, I think you've already touched on this a little bit, but I can like reorder things to stretch out the answer. What would you say to a law student or a young lawyer about what they can do with their law degree and how they can walk in alignment?
Okay, first, you can do anything with your law degree. And I mean it. You can do literally anything with your law degree because, and let's be honest, society values doctors and lawyers should value teachers a lot more and pay them a lot more. And so let's just be honest about the prestige of the profession. That's true. It is a stamp of credibility and approval when you are a lawyer. Like that's a fact. Let's say that. Let's call that out for what it is. And when you are a lawyer, especially if you're at a law firm too, or you're at a very prestigious like public interest center or institution, that you've been trained and you understand how to think analytically and critically. Like you get it. You know how to problem solve. You understand what work ethic means. Like you understand those things and you understand how to serve clients. And that is transferable to anything that you want to do. So that's number one is you can't go wrong with being a lawyer. The only thing that's the issue is the debt you may incur when you go to law school, right? But just in general, you could do anything with your degree. It's not a matter of if you can, it's what you would like to do and why. Because you will be good at it. You just maybe have to learn again, but you shouldn't be afraid to learn something new because law school is so freaking hard that you've done it. All right. You've done the hard stuff. You can do it again, especially for what you really want. Now, alignment, again, is really about how do I match what's inside of me with what I'm doing externally, right? And so you want to make sure that in your career and in your life, remember career is part of your life, you feel like your alignment is as tight as possible. So when you feel like you're in a job, like for me, when I was a securities litigator, I felt disconnected because it wasn't what I liked to do. I didn't enjoy it, although I loved the people I worked for and I loved how challenging it was intellectually, but that wasn't enough for me because I needed my job to be more fulfilling and allow me to exercise more of like my creativity and strengths I thought I had, which I was able to exercise in-house, collaborating with non-lawyers, working on tough problems in a totally different way, but really creatively. So paying attention to those things as you go and what makes me feel like there's like a tug of war within me versus like, this feels easeful. This feels like it's more fluid, like paying attention to that and not ignoring it and just making note of it is really important as you go.
Okay. And so a lot of those feelings can feel like anxiety or can feel like indecision. How do we know when we want to work with a coach, or how does coaching help us with finding out what we really want?
So it depends on the kind of coach you want, right? So you were talking about business coach. I've had a business coach for maybe the past 2 years. Depending on where I am in the business, I've switched them up. Like I've had a coach helping me with video and had right like marketing. I've had a coach help me more with crafting my offer that isn't the one-on-one stuff. It's other stuff that I do. So it depends on what the goal of what you're looking for is. My programs, I have a 6-week program of like, hey, I'm at a career inflection point. And so we work together for 6 weeks and we focus on that. And then my 3-month program is more for those who are on the verge of burnout, who really struggle with taking care of themselves and figuring out what do I want out of my life? What am I doing this for? Why do I feel the way that I feel? And typically, I will be honest about this, typically, if they're already burnt out, I tell them, because I've been burnt out, I know what that's like. It's complete depletion and non-functioning. Then I would say, hey, if you work with a therapist and me at the same time, that's the best thing because you really do need someone who is trained in therapy to give you that support. So coaching really helps you depending on where you're at. And it's important that you feel committed to coaching though. Because I'll meet with some folks who are not at that point of like, I really am committed to doing the work in coaching because when we're coaching, So my programs are we meet every week for 1 hour. And that's a big commitment. And you have to, there are action steps and there's homework and there's pre-work. That's how I run my program. Not every coach is like that. So you have to be committed to doing the work on yourself and then coming to session super honest. Because if you're not honest with yourself and honest with me, it's not going to work. And if we're not clear on the goals that you're looking for, it's not going to work. You're going to be disappointed. So we get really clear on all that in the beginning, but you have to also be clear that this is what you want to do. You want the support, you want the accountability. Because I also want to say this because this is what I've seen, especially in the past year or two. The problem is that we don't know things. We do know things. We understand like mindset is important. We can understand how to prioritize, although we may not be good at doing the thing. We understand intellectually so many things. The problem or the challenge that we often have is execution. It is not that I haven't color coded my calendar. It's not that I haven't blocked time on my calendar. The challenge is that I don't hold on to the time I block off on my calendar. The challenge is I don't go work out when I say I'm going to work out. I don't make it to dinner when I say I'm going to make it to dinner. I don't keep my plans with my friends like I say I'm going to do. We're not fulfilling the promises we make to ourselves because we don't have anyone being like, so how did that go? And what could you do differently next time? We don't have accountability. We don't have someone who is disinterested. Like coaches are disinterested, meaning if you want to leave your job or stay, we're agnostic. We just want you to do what's most aligned with who you are and what you want.
Yeah. And
Our
that's
goal
just it. Yeah, you get out of coaching what you put in. Because the first time I had a coach,
absolutely.
there was so much homework. I loved it, but then I never actually did the work because I was just doing the homework. And so then I was
Ah,
like, oh, I'm gonna need a hybrid, right?
yes.
So, but I had to be honest with myself and say, great coach. It was just that I needed a little bit more, or I just wasn't quite there yet. Like they're all different. They're all different. So
And sometimes we have to as coaches adjust. So if there's an immediate, like for my clients who are on the verge of burnout, we do very little pre-work for the first bit because the immediate need is getting you to back up from being on the verge of burnout, right? So we're going to do a lot of what can you change now? What can you change tomorrow? What can you shift? What habits can you shift to feel a little bit better each day? So like there is like coaches should have flexibility and know their client and know where they're at because we're meeting you where you're at. We're not just going to take you through a program because you're the driver as the client, right? We're just there to guide and support.
listen, that's everything. I've had two therapists, and I remember the first one. I was like, yeah, she's fine. I mean, we have a good time. And then I was working with someone else. I was about to sign up with them, and I was telling my friend, I was like, I mean, she just didn't pull stuff out of me. And she just got a master's in therapy or in counseling, and she was like, you're the driver. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, she just wouldn't ask the right questions. And she's like, you're the driver.
Yes.
Were you open? Were you talking? Or were you going in there real shallow and then the sessions were shallow? And I was like, oh. And now I love therapy because now I'm actually honest.
No, it's
But
true.
I didn't
Everyone will be
know.
honest. Yeah, you got to be honest. But you're right. You're right. You're the driver. How I must say this though, you are the driver, and even a therapist and a coach. They're not the same, right? They're different, but should know when to go deep. Like when I'm listening to a client, my job is literally to be so present and listen for what they're not saying, which is why AI will never be the greatest coach because the gift and craft of coaching is so much about what is not being said verbally. When I see a shift in energy, when I see someone say brush something off like, oh, but that's not a big deal. We're going to go right there into what is not a big deal, right? We're going to challenge and go deep. Like that's why I say coaching for me is transformational because I want to go deep on the things that are truly at the root of what's going on. And the only way for us to do that is if you're honest with me and if I go there and I push you there. And I do that. Like I have a client right now where I'm really challenging her, and every session I'm saying to her, I'm going to really challenge you here. This may be a hard conversation. And then she'll write me back after the session. She's like, that was really tough. And I'm like, I know, but this is the work. Like this is the work. And sometimes it's not like that, but oftentimes it can be because to transform how you see yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you're going to make decisions is work. And like relationships are work. Like when you have a relationship with your spouse or a partner or even your family, they take effort and investment. The same thing applies to the relationship with yourself.
Yeah, it does. And I think a key point there is just that transformation is different for everybody. And so
Yes,
it's going to look differently. Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh my gosh. This was so good. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to share with everybody. I mean, I feel like every episode I'm just trying to humanize lawyers a little bit more, just a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And this is definitely going to help. So I'm so excited to share it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.